You're listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast brought to you by DraftKings. Great deal going on. You put down a deposit, you get $1,000 in free plays. That simple, that easy if you put down the right deposit. All right, now joined by Jason Scheer. I am Mike Luke. Hello, Jason.
Hello, Michael.
All right, so I was going to say, you said you're tired, probably going to take a nap after this. What were your takeaways from Pac-12 Media Day? Because I have a few.
Here's the deal. I don't know if there was anything George Coleykov could have said that would have changed my mind on pretty much anything, but I thought he came out weak at first. Then he went after the Big 12 a little bit. I don't know. It wasn't overly impressive. I don't think it was awful. It was just kind of there, I guess.
All right. So here's the thing. He clearly said, Kliavkoff cracked me up a little bit when he said he wants to take the high road when it comes to the Big Ten. He doesn't want to talk about the Big Ten, but then he goes after the Big 12. Is George Kliavkoff scared of the Big Ten? Is that why he didn't want to talk about them?
Of course. The Big Ten could ruin the Pac-12 in a snap of a finger. It could call any team in the Pac-12 and say, you have an invite to the Big Ten, and they're gone. There's nothing the Pac-12 could do to have those teams say. So he's not going to go after them. There's still a Rose Bowl contract between the two, so he's not, maybe that has something to do with it. But, yeah, he can go after the Big 12 because he's not really scared of the Big 12. He probably thinks that, they could find a way to keep teams and keep the conference together. But if the Big 10 comes calling, it's over. There's nothing he can do.
All right. So now talking about the Pac-12, then he talked about how that they're looking to possibly add teams if it's possible. Are there teams out there that move the needle at all? Because the teams that I keep hearing are like San Diego State and SMU. And let's be honest here. That's pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, but that's what it's going to be. It's going to be San Diego State, and they'll pin it. They'll say that it's getting them in a San Diego market, which is great. And then it'll be like Fresno State or something, and they'll say they're getting them in that market as well. And San Diego State, I'm cool with, I guess. I know I've changed my mind on that because I told you once I wasn't cool with, but
no, I'm cool. I'm cool with San Diego State,
but I'm all right with San Diego State. The other ones, it does nothing for me. And really, San Diego State does nothing for me, but at least you can make a case of why that's a solid addition.
Well, right, and at least they're good in sports. At the end of the day, I thought it was interesting, too, that Kliavkoff kept mentioning that, it's about the student athletes. It's about how, if we try to make money, then we can basically lose picture of the big picture. I just can't imagine an SEC or a Big Ten commissioner saying, if we're trying to make money, maybe we're losing track of the big picture.
Yeah, once again, the Pac-12 is behind everyone else because the other conferences were saying, heck, I'll even give one better. Jed Fish, during his opener, talked about NIL and how they're getting players money and getting guys paid, and pretty much made a recruiting pitch. And then George is like, no, we need to go back to the good old days. But then he calls college football an industry. So it's like, which one is it? Like, what do you want here? And him getting on his soapbox and saying that college football is losing its direction and all that, it's just not going to work because it's not, it's just, he can't stop that from happening. And these kids want to get paid.
All right, let me rephrase then. Maybe I was a little too hard on him. I think Kliavkoff went in there not looking – he did inspire confidence. I'll put it to you like that because he looked kind of out of place. He was clearly taking shots. He looked a little uncomfortable. It didn't look like he had – this is a moment that he knew that all eyes were going to be on him. And it's sort of like I said, at least to me, didn't inspire a ton of confidence.
I'll say this. He looked agitated, which – he looked like he didn't want to be there. Like, even when the media asked questions, like the first question right off the bat was, should the Pac-12 have a seat for the college football playoff? Not a bad question.
Right.
It makes sense with everything that's going on. And then his answer is, I'm not even going to distinguish that. No one said that. Well, people have said that.
Right.
That's what college football is becoming with the SEC and the Big Ten. And right off the bat, he was just agitated with questions. And you don't want that. You want confidence. Explain to me why the Pac-12 deserves it. Explain to me why the Pac-12 is this conference that's going to stay alive. And he really just couldn't do it. I thought the worst comment he made was when someone asked him about his confidence. And he was like, when I look him in the eye, that's the feeling I get.
That was going to be my next point. That can't be. This is like back in the day, I looked into Vladimir Putin's eyes and I saw his soul. And there's no politics involved there, so please don't take it that way. But No, these people are going to tell you, like any president, they're going to tell you what is best for them. They're going to tell you what's best for them at the time, as they should.
You looked Kevin Warren in the eye during the alliance and trusted him, and he took the two best schools and tried to kill your conference. So you're going to do that again?
Yeah.
If George asked USC the day before they left if they were staying in the Pac-12, the president and the AD would have been like, absolutely, George, we're Pac-12 for life. And then 20 minutes later, announced that they're leaving. They have to. You're part of the Pac-12 until you're not. And all these guys are lying to each other's faces.
All right. I want to talk a little bit too, and he gets a lot of good information, but there's also some West Coast reporters here that are clearly being used by the conference here. And, again, John Canzano has gotten some really good stuff. He's a big name. I'm just Mike Luke. He's John Canzano. So I don't think he's going to be too worried about anything that I'm saying right now. But I have a little bit of an issue here. He reported that he would be very surprised if this is last week, if by August 4th, there wasn't a TV deal in place. Well, literally the first thing Kliavkoff said is we're months off from having anything like that. What is that a case of maybe a president or an athletic director using somebody to try to get a narrative out there? Or how could you be so far off on that information that you boldly put out there last week?
Yeah, it's got to be that he got used because – and I will say the narrative has changed because there's other writers, like you mentioned, that were like, yeah, I mean, a deal's going to get done. It's going to be better than people think. And all of a sudden, the last 48 hours, it's like, there's no deal even on the table. We got to wait for the Big Ten and then see what happens. And now all of a sudden, it's the Big Ten controls the Pac-12 when before it was, oh, we're going to get a good deal. And it just, it kills your credibility, like you mentioned, and it makes no sense. Like that was the deal all along. It was always going to be a low offer from ESPN because they want to go to the table and try to get the Big Ten. And the worst thing that can happen in the Pac-12 in its future is if ESPN does get a big chunk of the Big Ten, because then they're not going to want to spend that money on the Pac-12, and you're going to have to get really creative in the future of the conference.
If we go through football and basketball season this year, and there is no deal done, there is no extension by, let's say, next April. At that point, if you're looking at everything, is it basically every man for himself?
It's got to be, because these deals get signed a year or two in advance anyway, the TV deals.
Right.
And so if you're at next April with 1 year left on the TV deal, it's every man for himself, and we're back to where we are now, except I think there's going to be a little bit more movement than there is now.
All right, so now let's talk about the streaming things, because I suck. You're very good at technological.
For you.
Oh, no, this is. I don't like anything that I'm hearing. So tell me about, and keep in mind, this is somebody I have to call Scheer and basically ask him very elementary questions at points. But what is the deal then as far as Hulu, Apple? Everybody's asking me these questions, and I don't know the answer. That's why I had you on today.
Hulu is probably a little unlikely because of its relationship with Disney and ESPN, unless that's the route that they take, is that, trying to get college football on Hulu. Apple has wanted to get in it, they're Amazon, and it's difficult to imagine those being the top, like the tier one, where pretty much the Pac-12 is owned by those guys. But if you can get a deal on ESPN Plus or go into streaming like the NFL, I mean, the NFL's into streaming with Amazon, that's something that's happening. Then that's kind of the wave of the future, and maybe you can get a little bit more money in that. It's hard to imagine that being the main source of, viewing, but it's going to happen. I mean, George pretty much said it today. They're going to get creative in how they stream and all that.
All right, so now let's talk about brands then. Let's assume that the Pac-10 stays together. Okay, let's talk football first. You have, what is your brand is obviously Oregon, and then it's Utah?
Washington, I guess. Washington and Utah. Location-wise, probably Washington.
Isn't that, and I'm sorry, I get what they're having to do. I get that you're having to make money, but isn't that essentially a Mountain West kind of competition right there? Yeah. I get Oregon's above that, but all those other schools, and Utah's tough, but everything on there just screams AA baseball.
Yeah, I mean, let's say they had San Diego State. You have Oregon, Washington, Utah, let's just throw San Diego State in there.
Right.
Your fifth team is what? Stanford, I guess.
Back the A?
Stanford, Arizona, ASU. It's not, and Stanford's not really a brand. It's more of a market and location, Olympic sports and all that, which is why, the Big Ten probably wants them. But yeah, it's not in for basketball. It's disgusting. I mean,
that was going to be my next point. So now let's look at it in basketball. And again, if you wanted to bet on this, where would you go, Jason?
PHNX.
DraftKings Sportsbook app.
I just know the code. I just remember
PHNX. Well, if you take two things away from this, remember the DraftKings Sportsbook app and remember the code. But here's the deal. You put down a deposit, you get $1,000 in free plays. If you think that I'm smart, go with me. If you think I'm an idiot, go against me. 21 and up, Arizona only, gambling issue, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Now, I will say this. If this conference does go on as could be possible, if I was looking at the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX, basically I would take Oregon and Arizona over the rest of the league for the foreseeable future. That becomes a hideously bad basketball conference as well.
Yeah, and again, let's just say they add San Diego State. You're still Arizona, Oregon, San Diego State, and then a bunch of teams
that's gross.
And now you have to really load your out of conference because your in conference schedule sucks. And it's just a bad basketball conference. It is the worst major basketball conference in America.
Isn't it essentially kind of a glorified Mountain West at that point?
Yeah, 100%. And the WCC is better. Gonzaga, St. Mary's.
Yeah,
that's probably better than the Pac-12 at that
point. I guess that's my concern. I get the point about wanting to stick together for stability, but if you're sticking together for stability under a conference that is basically looked at as the Mountain West now, is that really stability, especially if you're a Power 5 and you're looking to make that, because there's going to be another explosion at some point where another conference mutates, whatever the case may be. Is that the best way if you're Arizona to be able to emerge into one of those situations?
No, it's definitely not, because I always feel once you go to that mediocrity, you're going to stay there.
Right.
Unless Arizona's plan would be, let's win the conference in basketball every year. Let's run through the conference of basketball and see if we can maybe go up to the Big Ten in 3 to 5 years. But even that, that just feels unlikely because of markets and all that. And from a non-reporter, just a fan point of view, it's boring. It's a boring conference to watch. It's fun that Arizona is going to be the favorite with Oregon pretty much every single year, but overall it's boring.
All right. We've had multiple people ask about Kwame Evans. That's a tease. We're going to get to him. Scheer's going to have to be dealing with Kwame Evans. I'm glad I'm not in the information breaking business right now, but we will get to him. But I want to talk now some Arizona football. I'm done making fun of George Kliavkoff for a little bit. Okay. So, Jason, you and I were talking about this. I have convinced myself that this team is better than the 2.5 wins. Depending on where you go, it's 3 wins now. I think the Cats can win 4 or 5 games possibly. And I'm also very happy that there's no pretense going into camp. It's Jayden de Laura's team. I didn't want to see him getting 55% of the reps and the other guys. This should be his team. He's the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year. And this team's going to sink or swim based on, I think, what he does.
Yeah, it's, I agree with you with the win total. I'm totally on that train. The issue is the out of conference schedule is just so stupid.
Right. You're playing the national champions.
Yeah. National champions. San Diego State with their bomb arena, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. Arizona's going to have to go what? 2 they can't go winless. So let's say they go
1-2.
Right. 1-2 would be fine. 2-1 would be awesome. But if they go 1-2, they're probably going over that too. 2-1, clearly they are. But if they go 1-3, it gets difficult. Cal, Colorado, ASU, Washington State, those are the winnable games for me in the conference. But I do think that they are a better team than last year based on Jayden de Laura alone, because I think they lost numerous games based on quarterback play, and it's such an upgrade that they're going to be a much better offensive team. I'd be surprised if they're not significantly better on offense.
Okay, what did you say that you thought the winnable games in conference were?
Cal, Colorado, Washington State, ASU.
Yeah, I'm in on that. And I think that those, and the only games that you look at and you say, you don't have any chance right there. You're probably not beating Utah. You're probably not beating USC. And
UCLA, probably not beating them.
Probably not. But again, remember, you could.
Washington, but it's at Washington in October, so the weather is going to be a nightmare.
Is this the best skill position on paper passing, receiving since maybe since the Stoops era?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they're absolutely loaded. Jaden DeLora is probably underrated at this point. I don't know why he's not getting any preseason hype whatsoever. Even in the conference, I don't think he got like an honorable mention. But you're looking at Jacob Cowing, who's probably underrated. He's really, really good. T-Mac, even a guy like Kevin Green, freshman who no one's paying attention to. We looked at AJ Jones, who's not even in the rotation right now, and the kid's looks like he's 7'2".
Right.
Yeah, I mean the Dorian Singer. Joyner is going to be healthy in the first day of camp. Yeah, they're loaded at the position.
Okay, now let's look at the running back position then. I think you and I have heard the same thing, that Jonah Coleman is eventually going to be the guy that I think they want to be that guy. But again, he's young. It's very difficult to be, a freshman running back in that spot. But let's say that the season starts now. Is it Drake Anderson / Michael Wiley probably getting the bulk of the first game carries?
I would say so. I think Wiley for sure. I think after that, it might just be Coleman. I really do. I think Anderson will get touches, but Coleman is a guy where they might not be able to keep on the field. And, DJ Williams is arriving to campus today, the Florida State transfer, and they like him quite a bit, and he's kind of a wild card. But let's say the first game is this weekend, it would absolutely be Wiley as the first back.
I've had a lot of people ask me on the offensive line, how good is Peyton Fears? Because it feels, first of all, like he's been here for 35 years. And he's obviously the best, most accomplished lineman on this. Is this a guy that, if things go well, can he be all conference? Is this a guy that if things, he's mainly just a quality starter at Arizona? How good is Peyton Fears?
I think he's just a quality starter. Mr. Consistent. He's not going to dominate the competition, but he's not going to screw you over either.
Right.
You know what you're going to get each game from. Good kid, good teammate. So he's not going to be one of the better linemen in the conference, but there's a lot of teams that would probably like to have him on the roster.
All right, fair enough. All right, now moving over to the defensive side, one guy that I think has been underrated this entire time and not a lot of people talk about, and again, we're going to get to Kwame Evans, I promise here, but the one guy that I think a lot of people forget about is Keon Bars. And again, just to remind, he missed all of spring, but at the end of last year, I think it's impossible to say he wasn't your best lineman. He got 5 sacks in his last 10 games. If he can emerge as an all Pac-12 caliber guy, which I think a lot of people are expecting him to, that changes the trajectory along the defensive line, because Arizona hasn't had anybody like that since Scooby Wright on the line.
Yeah, I mean, he showed flashes when he was healthy of being one of the better linemen in the conference. And that's the expectation. Jedd Fisch said today that he's healthy and he'll be there for the first practice. And that's huge towards the team. They need to find a way to keep him healthy all season. And like you mentioned, if he's as good as advertised or as good as the coaching staff thinks he's going to be, that defensive line is a lot better than, I think people are giving it credit for.
All right. Barring injury, you combine Jalen Harris and Hunter Echols, USC transfer, who is the best pass rusher all throughout spring football. Over or under 9.5 sacks for the two of them combined?
Echols and Harris?
That's a good number.
That's a good number. Let's go over. Let's go 10.
All right, you're going to go 10. So that was going to be my next point. Then, if we can get 10, if Arizona can get 10 sacks from the defensive ends, you got Keon Bars in there. There definitely is a question next to Keon Bars on the inside, because you got Paris Shand, who started a game, flashed a little bit. You've got the UCLA kid coming in there as well. Is that next to Keon Bars? Is it basically going to be Shand gets the first shot and then Savea probably gets that next shot if that doesn't work out?
Yeah, there's going to be a rotation. They got to figure that spot out. I mean, Shand has the potential, the athleticism, former basketball player and all that. It's just a matter of staying healthy and being able to do that production and get the production. But that by far is the biggest question. You know what you're getting out of Jalen Harris and some of the other guys. It's that next spot where they're going to rotate guys in, but it'll be Paris Shand to start, I assume.
All right, now let's talk Christian Young. Obviously was brought with to Pac-12 Media Day. The coaching staff clearly thinks a great deal of him. He's an interesting player to me, because there's times when he looks like he's an NFL-type talent, and then there's other times where he just kind of looks lost on the back end. I think ideally his stat line is you can keep him in the box more, but he's probably getting 5 to 6 tackles, a tackle for loss, and maybe a big hit in the passing game. Because if he's in the back end of the secondary, that's going to be trouble, because that's not necessarily what he does best.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't like him in coverage. I don't think we're going to see him in coverage as much. I kind of like how this coaching staff is probably going to use him. They'll play his zone more, but they're not going to drop him back where, he's by himself as a pure safety covering guys. I think we'll see him more in the box, and that's the type of player he is. I mean, you could look at him and think that he's a linebacker. That's just how he's built, but that's another guy. I mean, they brought him to media day for a reason. They love him. They think he's going to have a big year. Every time Jedd Fisch mentions the defense, he's one of the first guys that comes up.
Christian Roland Wallace has been a fan now of, it seems like, 7 different coaching staffs that that he's been under. But it's kind of more of the same when people ask me about him, and tell me if I'm wrong. Really good in press coverage, but you know what? If he's on an island, he's going to probably have some more issues because he's not a great speed back end guy. But his starting cornerbacks go in the conference. Arizona has certainly fielded a lot worse corners than that.
Yeah, I think that he was kind of put in somewhat of a bad position last season in the sense where, he was always on an island. He was always man-to-man, and that's not necessarily his strength all the time. And you're going to see him play more in zone. There were times where last season I thought he should have been playing safety, but even in he's going to have some bad moments. He's still a legitimately good corner, especially for Arizona. But I believe that he's going to have, I don't want to say a breakout season, but I bet you he's going to have a pretty solid season this year because I think the coaching staff is going to put him in a better position to succeed.
All right. We're joined by Jason Scheer, senior editor of Wildcat Authority. Jason, what do you have going on right now? I know you always have something cool going on.
Now we don't. We're going to start something next week, I think, with the beginning of fall camp. But
all right.
Just wildcatauthority.com.
All right, Jason will keep you up to date on that one. I'll keep you up to date on DraftKings in the meantime. Code word PHNX. All right. Jason and I talked about it. We both like the over of 2.5 wins. Correct, Jason?
I do. Yeah.
All right. So here's the thing. A lot of people probably think I'm stupid. Fair enough. But nobody thinks that Jason's stupid. So if Jason's concurring with me, you might want to go in there and you might want to put on there and say, you know what? Jason Scheer likes the over 2.5 wins. Not sure exactly what the wins are going to be, but he thinks it's going to get it done. Jayden de Laura is in there as well. Look at last year. If you had Jayden de Laura at quarterback, you're probably going over 2.5 wins there, Jason.
Yeah, they're probably going 3 or 4.
You're going 3 or 4. You're going big, but that's where you want to be again. The DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. Ricky Garrett just put in, I'm more optimistic about this team than I have ever been. And I don't know that this isn't the most optimistic I've ever been for an Arizona team, but I get what Ricky's saying when he says that. And again, code word PHNX DraftKings. But I get what Ricky's saying, though. It feels like, okay, Jedd's got a few of his players in here. There's a year under the belt. We're going to have a better idea of how Jedd Fisch can coach this year because I have no idea, and I don't think it was fair to be able to judge what Jedd Fisch could do last year.
Yeah, I mean, we're having a quarterback that could probably run his system. If not, we're going to point to Jedd and saying maybe his system's a little too complicated. But this is a quarterback that could run his system. He brought in a defensive coordinator that he claims is going to run the stuff that he wants to run, wide receiver upgrade and all that. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna find out if they go out and win one game again and it's crappy like it was last season.
Right.
And Jedd's going to take a little bit of heat for it.
You know what's exciting, though, Jason, is that you've also – this is one of the first times I can remember going into a season where I'm like, you know what? Special teams could actually be a weapon for Arizona this year.
Yeah, it should be pretty solid. I mean, Tyler Loop, my guy, Tyler Loop, Ossendorf, one of the best punters in the country. It's kind of neat to say, especially –
You might have NFL talent at that position.
Yes, it is very possible. NFL punter.
And we do think, though, by the end of the year, Arizona's better than ASU either way, correct?
Yeah, I think ASU's probably falling apart by the end of this year.
Yeah, I would look at that one as well. All right, now, a couple things. Now we're going to get over to Arizona basketball, but let me tell you about Four Peaks Brewery, the official beer, Four Peaks of the AZ Wildcats podcast, and Go PHNX. Go on to Go PHNX and enter for a raffle right there. Good stuff going on. But okay. Keke Evans Jr. The latest news, and again, is that somebody else said that they now think that he's going to Oregon. Now, just to remind people of who Keke Evans Jr. is, top 5 player in the country, would easily be the biggest recruit of the Tommy Lloyd era. What are you hearing now, Jason? Because nobody is more connected on this stuff than you are.
Look, we've both been around recruiting long enough to know that anything could happen.
Right.
He could go to Oregon and it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world because recruiting, nothing surprises us anymore. As of 24 hours ago, as of this morning, I'm not changing my crystal ball pick on 24/7. I still think he's going to Arizona. Could I find out new information tomorrow where he's not going to Arizona? Sure, I guess. But talking to our national guys and all that, we don't really have the feeling that much has changed. I know who the other guy talks to and kind of where the information is coming from. Oregon probably feels like they have a legit shot too, but Arizona feels pretty good about it as of now.
All right. I wanted to ask you before we sign off here, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Adin Ball. And everybody saw those highlights over in France. Is he the ultimate wild card for this year's team, and that you could see him making a major step and somehow entering the lineup and basically never being taken out? Or maybe it's just kind of a slow trickle, but you do get the feeling that there's something to him for sure.
I mean, the coaching staff loves him.
Right.
There's a reason why their guard and their wing recruiting is a certain way, because when they look at it, they basically say, is this guy going to play over Adema? And the answer is usually no.
Right.
And so he may not start, but he could absolutely work his way into being one of the better offensive guys on the team. Defense, he's come around. He still has some work in that area. But it's probably – I wouldn't be surprised that it's slow at first, and by the end of the year, he's playing a lot more minutes than people expect. But, I mean, the coaching staff loves him. They're high on him, and it may – even if it doesn't come this season, they think by next season he's going to be a monster.
All right. I also want to tell you before we sign off about FOCO, it's one of the coolest memorabilia things out there, from bobbleheads to merchandise, anything you want, they've pretty much got. Check it out. You can go to gophnx.com for more information. FOCO is a palindrome, or not a palindrome, FOCO. Check it out right there. Again, I'm a little new on that read, so be nice to me right there. But all right, before we sign off here, Jason, I wanted to ask you this. Two things. Over or under this coming season for Arizona basketball, over or under 11 minutes per game for Kylan Boswell?
Ooh, man, your numbers are good, Mike.
They are. It's for the DraftKings Sportsbook app.
I would say, man, let's go under. I'd say about 10 minutes a game.
I agree with you on that one. Who plays more minutes this year, Umar Ballo or Henry Visar?
Henry Visar by the end of the year will be playing more minutes than Umar, and I love Umar.
All right. So, wow. So you're really okay. Oh, I got to ask you this too. Dirty Dancer, great question. He had 2 great points. He says he'll start to care about the over-unders when it's at least 5. Fair enough. I can't really dispute that. But now Moogie Cook, yes. Oregon decommit. Arizona is now recruiting him. Where does Arizona stand with Moogie Cook?
It's another GLeague deal. If he doesn't go to the GLeague, it's probably, I think Arizona's in a good spot, but the GLeague is a very prominent option for Moogie.
Are we going to continue to see this where more and more guys go to the G League? Because it's certainly, again, it's not an end all be all, but I think the G League has shown if you're good enough, you can go there and make money, and it's not going to hurt your stock.
Something I want to point out with the G League, though, starting front court, Sharif O'Neal and Efe Abogidi. Think about that. That's your starting front court. So maybe it's not all it's cracked up to be. But it'll still be a thing because they write checks.
And did you see Sharif's getting a six-figure deal?
Yeah, then that's what I'm saying. They write checks. FA is too. So, I mean, if you could go to the G League and you're Sharif O'Neal for $300,000, or go to Arizona and get a cool NIL deal for $100,000, you're gonna pick the G League.
All right, one last thing before we sign off here. Again, appreciate everybody hopping in here. Duke Scheer says, Duke Scheer? I'll let you pronounce that. He said, UNLV, are they an option for the new look Pac-12?
I hope not. I don't think highly of UNLV. I mean, their football program isn't good enough. Their basketball program isn't that good enough. I get the Vegas market, but it just doesn't move the needle for me. He's Jason Scheer. I'm Mike Luke. Again, Jason, where can they find you? WildcatAuthority.com. Jason Scheer on Twitter. Oh. Hi, Brielle. How are you? Good. I'm going to the movie. I didn't hear her. She can come back. She's fine. She gets upset because she knows how my family almost mangled you. Oh, no. That's a story for another day. That's when you know that I'm a good friend. But, again, for Jason Scheer, appreciate you as always. Brielle as well. We like your hand right there. But I like my finger as well. Inside joke. But for Jason Scheer, I'm Mike Luke. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast. Thanks, Mike.